Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is July 17th, 2024, and we have got such a fun show for you today. My guest is actually a children's coloring book author. And for me, this is so much fun because when I first started out as the staff artist for a local magazine in my hometown, one of my main jobs was to create the kids' color pages. And it was so much fun. But I never had the opportunity to create an entire book. So today we're talking with an author who has experience in just that. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, Takiyah Smith. As we always do, today I would like to ask my guest to please tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Takiyah Smith. I am an author and a publishing consultant. I've successfully published 3 books that are available on my website, TakiyahSmithAuthor.com, Barnes & Noble, on Amazon, and retailers nationwide where books are sold.
Now, you did not start out with the intent of becoming an author.
I did not.
You had a very different and interesting career path chosen. What was that?
I went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and so my field was in fashion. However, my degree is in merchandise product development. So business ownership is still a similar path without the fashion portion of it. Really, I just got the idea for my first book. And even though it didn't come into fruition until many years later, it was an idea that came to me. I always loved writing. And so it was like, I'm going to go for it.
So what was the catalyst that actually made you make that transition?
I would say once I published my other 2 books, my first book I published during the pandemic. And so I think that gave me the time and opportunity to be able to kind of go at it full force, especially after I published my second 2. And it actually was also during the pandemic. It was kind of more towards the middle and then the end, my other 2 coloring books. So the pandemic in many ways was not great, but at the same time, it led for a lot of opportunities for people. And for me, it was the opportunity of time and not having to spend great lengths of time commuting on the freeway. I was, like many of us, were at home. So it was kind of just the perfect time for me to plunge into publishing my books, especially since I had not done it before. I just afforded the luxury of time to kind of stumble through it the first time I did it with my very first book.
And I love the images that you have on the cover of your coloring books.
Thank you.
I love that you have one specifically for girls and one for boys, because I know a lot of kids of any gender that love to color.
Yes, absolutely. So I created my girls' coloring book first. I Love Me, Colorful and Created. It's an empowering coloring book for girls. And on the front, I have Doodle, Dream, Discover, because really that is what I want the child to do, to embark on when they open up the coloring book. I want them to feel free to doodle, be creative. I have an open page following the main coloring page with just inspiring words on the corresponding page because I didn't want to have bleed through on the backs of page, which I noticed. But going back to the cover, it is a smorgasbord of imagery on the front. There are 3 main pictures of the girls. One, I took some of these poses from actual athletes, and that pose was of Serena Williams. However, the imagery was made more childlike, of course. A girl swimming, a girl playing drums. And then a lot of other small pictures in the background, like puppies, cats, computers, luggage to symbolize traveling, unicorns, math, equations. Who doesn't like all of those different things as a young girl, I think. And even if you don't, you get to choose, you get to be aware of those different things, even if you weren't aware, of the music notes of what that looked like, or science beakers. So yeah, it's a mix of kind of what's to come inside of the book.
The images on both of the books are just absolutely fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, and similarly on the boys, I chose to put some of the images in color of the boys and same with the girls, and then with some other pops of color in the background so that those images can kind of pop to the forefront book. So it's definitely not like, oh, these things are for boys or these things are for girls. I think most things are interchangeable, which reflects in the books. The imagery inside is very much the same. I was inspired to put the crown on the boys' book as centering the I love me. And then on the girls, I decided to do a heart with stars and to make a heart encompassing the title of the book. I am very happy. In the process of creating, you don't really know how it's going to look until it's kind of done. And, it took me a while. I put a lot into the covers, and I'm just very happy with how they came out.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure to get you and your coloring books in with our summer read suggestions is because they do have children of color on the covers. And I know for me, growing up, I never saw that on children's books or coloring books.
Agree. Neither did I. The coloring books that I recall from my childhood were either like Disney princess type of books, or maybe perhaps like cartoon books like Winnie the Pooh. I'm trying to think of some other cartoons I watch. I don't know, specifically remember Winnie the Pooh, but I don't remember at all coloring books like this of children that look like me. Like I said, in the princesses books at that time, there were no African-American princesses, no Black princesses. And so all of the princesses had straight hair, and in many of the or Barbie books, like I really like Barbie. Yeah, that's another one I remember. I think a lot of people like Barbie growing up. And so I remember those coloring books. And while they were beautiful, I enjoyed the coloring books. I don't remember any diversity within those books.
And there's still so many people who don't realize how important it is for children, especially very young children, to be able to see themselves in beautiful things and to have pretty pictures that they can color and make prettier, and the children in them look like them. It is so important for self-image and to build confidence and to see themselves as beautiful.
Absolutely agree. Much of it is subconscious. And as a kid, you don't realize it. You can't articulate it, whether you do have that imagery and you're coloring it, or if you don't have that imagery and you're coloring something that doesn't look like it. They don't realize, they don't really internalize it like, why doesn't this look like me? But you're so right when you say that it builds that confidence when you can see yourself in a book with children that look similar to you or your family. Totally agree.
So what was the hardest part about creating a coloring book?
I would say the most difficult part was finding the right designer for the creation of the images. I do not draw well. You wouldn't want a coloring book with my drawing in it. So finding someone to bring my vision to life, I would say that was probably the hardest part. I went through several different designers before I was able to find the right one. And even in the boys' book, it was actually a different designer. So I would definitely say that was the most difficult part, finding the best graphic designer for the project.
Now, of course, your coloring books are not the only book that you have published. You also have a book for adults.
Yes, correct. That was my first book, Single Mom in the City, Create Time, Money, and a Rich Life. And this book is sort of the how-to book. Essentially, it's right there in the subtitle, Creating Time, because as moms in general, time is one of the things that we have the biggest challenge with. And then there's money, having more money, having enough money, creating more, and then having a rich, healthy, and fulfilled life. Managing having a child or children can be challenging. And so the book focuses on those main three areas of challenge and how to navigate it all.
I have been doing better at time management. And I think I have a fairly rich life, but I am still stuck on the money part.
Right. I think a lot of people are. And I think the statistics show that a lot of people are challenged with money and just in general within the US, outside of the US, just in general. I mean, we don't call the 1% for nothing. It's crazy to think that 1% of the people in the world have most of the money. So I think a lot of people are challenged with that. Some of the things that I talk about in terms of money is creating multiple sources of income, creating passive income, investing, having an investment account for your children starting at a young age, or even when they're in the stomach. This is not something I did. This is something, had I known, I would have done. And even if it's the smallest amount, I think most people can afford to put something, whether it's $5, $25, $100 a month for their child in the investment account. Like, kids have birthdays, there's Christmas, and people might just give your children money for no reason. And oftentimes as parents, we bought them pretty much what they've needed, and they don't really need a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So that we receive for those special occasions, at least a part of it could go into their investment account that would grow, that could be used to pay for college, for them to start a business. The sky's the limit, whatever it is. I mean, and to think if one starts when their child is in the stomach, and even if they're putting the smallest amount, that could see some very good growth by the time they are 18 or in their 20s, whenever you would choose to give it to them.
Well, and everything always adds up.
Absolutely. So yeah, so those are some of the things in terms of money that I talk about in the book. And of course, budgeting too. No one likes to do that, but it helps. Yeah. I know I don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of a stickler about my budgets. I think I drive my husband crazy about that, because I'm like, no, I don't want to go do that. That goes beyond my budget for this month.
Oh, you're such an adult. I love it. You're so good.
Well, I think part of it is too, it's like I started working when I was 15, and I was taking care of a lot of my own things. And so I had to be able to budget to afford the things that I wanted to on such a small amount of money coming in. And that's just carried over through the rest of my life.
Oh, well, that's kind of nice that you had those lessons to be able to take with you into adulthood. I think a lot of people don't learn to, or don't start budgeting until well into adulthood. So that's great.
Well, and where I went to high school, we actually had a math class that we could take that was called consumer math. And it taught you how to balance your checkbook, how to create a budget, how to fill out tax forms. It was all the things that you would have to know to be a good consumer in the world.
Oh, wow. We learned how to do the checkbook, but I think that was about definitely not taxes. That's awesome. Yeah, that's needed. That's totally needed.
I've always wanted to kind of like contact somebody whose kids are still going to that high school and ask them, do they still have that math class? Because that was the best math class I ever took.
Right. Something that translates into the real world versus geometry.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, they didn't have anything like that when I went to high school, but I agree they should swap out one of the other math classes for some, or add something like that for students to have the options. I'm sure a lot of kids would take that, like even if it also included like savings, saving money, investing. I mean, that's far more useful than pre-calculus.
Oh yeah.
Unless you're going into that, that kind of field, but most people aren't. So
now, whenever you decided to publish your first book or just write your first book, how long did it take you from your idea to actually publishing?
It took about 3 to 4 years. However, and that's just in time because I was not consistent with my writing. And that's the main reason. But once I set a deadline for completing the book, well, actually, I set a deadline to have it published. And so that put the fire under me to get it done. And the writing part, finishing it up. And I think I was about at this point, maybe halfway. And I finished the rest of the book in about 3 months. And so the book itself, in terms of work time, I would say probably took me maybe like 3 to 4 months to write in terms of work time. And that's one lesson that I learned from one, if once I write another book at some point, was to write every day. Because when I was writing every day, your creative juices just continued to flow. It was just easy. You were in the mind state of your book versus if I took a week off, then I had to, okay, what was I writing? Let me reread. Like you're just not in that flow. So writing every day keeps the consistent flow. And when you don't have it and it takes so much longer. So that's something I'm going to do different with the next book. And that had I known, I would have done that differently. Even if it's the smallest amount, we think we don't have time, but even if it's like 15 minutes like that. And that's what I did when I set a deadline to get it finished. I wrote, even if it was the smallest amount of time, and that was enough.
Now, did you even try to go traditionally published with this first one?
I did. That was actually my plan initially. I was working with 2 authors, helping them with their promotion for their book and getting book signings locally. And they were both published with 2 very large publishing houses, very well known. And they told me about some of the not great things of being with those larger publishing houses. But even still, I still was interested in publishing with the publishing house. So I didn't go to the larger ones. I looked up on the internet, found a couple of different places to interview. And one I went in person, one I went over the phone. And what I found that they had that I didn't have was that distribution chain. That was the most attractive thing with going with the larger publishing house. Their distribution was for over 40,000 retailers your book would be available to. And so once I figured that out, I just went straight to their distribution for publishing my book. Like I realized from working with those authors, they told me that large publishing houses don't really promote you. They might promote you a little bit, but unless you're Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, or someone large like that, who already has a following, or if you have a proven track record, of course, they are less likely to put their time and resources into pushing your book. So like I said, those 2 authors, they worked with their own money to hire me to assist with their promotion because the publishing house wasn't doing it. So it was like, well, I might as well just do it myself then. I want to have creative license. One of the publishers mentioned, she didn't really love the color. She wanted some things changed. They let her change one thing, but it was like, okay, that's it, and I'm very picky when it comes to my creativity. So I couldn't see having that limitation on me where someone's like, okay, no, that's enough. We're going with this if I still wasn't satisfied. So after that point, it was an easy decision to, okay, I'll just do this myself so it can be how I want it.
I had heard the same kind of stories from different authors about how, oh yeah, I wanted the title to be this, but they said no, that this one was more marketable. I wanted this image on the cover and, it really meant something to me. It's like, well, no, they wanted that cover. So that's what we got. And they were just talking about how unhappy they were with the end product. The story was what they wanted, but there were so many things that were changed around it that it just wasn't the book that they were happy to have in their hands. And I'm like, I would rather have a book that I was happy to have my name on than to make $10,000 off of a single title. To me, it was about the process and the work.
I agree. And, while they are professional and they have experience, they don't know for a fact what they're saying is correct or not. I mean, I like the quote from Steve Jobs, when he was creating Apple, it was like people like with the Apple computer, it was just so different. He was like, people don't know what they want until you create it, until you give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that quote. It's so true with the publishers. It's like, oh, this was worked, or no, this is better. But people haven't seen what you're trying to put out. You just don't know what people want.
Now, writing books is not the only thing that you do. You're also a consultant.
Yes. Yes. I assist publishers who would like to go to the self-publishing route, help them avoid a lot of the pitfalls. A lot of the time, again, I published this during the pandemic, so I had more time, but it took me many hours of being on hold with customer support, back and forth emails to try to figure out the whole process. Like I help authors determine if self-publishing is even, perhaps they want to go the large publishing house route. I assist them with getting in Barnes and Noble, Amazon. They save money through the publishing process. They are able to keep money in their pocket. I help them with low-cost outsourcing or referrals to excellent editors, graphic designers, unless they have their own, of course. But a lot of times I work with people who it's their first time publishing and they have no clue, or perhaps second time and they need that assistance going through the process. Perhaps if their second book, like they tried it on their own and it was difficult and maybe they didn't like the process. So I give them everything they need to turn their manuscript into a professional published book. For me, that was very important with my work. I've seen self-published authors and a lot of times it looks like it, and I'm just being honest. And so for me, that was the most important thing. And I've been to book signings where you can tell people self-publish. Not always, but sometimes you can just tell the font is tiny, the cover is not well done. So I want to help people get a product that looks like it came from a professional publishing house where customers cannot tell the difference. That's what I want to help my clients get to.
So what do you think is the biggest mistake that new authors tend to make when they decide to go the self-publishing route?
I think doing the cover themselves, unless they're skilled, at least in graphic design, I know where my strengths lie. Mm-hmm. And so I've never even bothered to use any of those different online sources to create covers. From what I've seen, because I've seen different books that have had similar templates, even though it was different authors. So I'm assuming there's some kind of template one could choose from, or multiple templates that individuals can choose from. And it looks like it. Sometimes the font is too small. I've noticed that. So I would say the professionalism, I would say the cover and the font are two of the biggest things.
Now, one of the things that I've seen in author chat rooms is people will say that the thing that is important is the story, not the grammar, not the punctuation. That if there are a few typos, it's fine. You don't need a professional editor as long as you have a strong story.
Really? That's interesting. I personally wouldn't agree. I mean, a few typos, it does happen. And so I think that's fine. But punctuation and grammar, unless in terms of grammar, unless that's like the writing style within that book, if it's intentional, that's one thing. But if it's mistakes, I think people could get annoyed with that. And it shows that you didn't really put the time into your product. That's what I would think. If there was a lot of grammatical errors, I haven't experienced that, so I can't say if I would just still continue to read if there was a lot of errors. So it's hard for me to say how that would be. And you do need an editor to edit your book. And then you will want to have someone multiple people actually read the book after the editor has edited, and after you've given you've made those corrections, they've taken a look again, you've gone back and forth a little bit to make sure the average reader will look at it, read it, and everything flows and makes sense. And those people, they might catch some errors in the book. So so getting a lot of eyes on it before it's published, it helps with minimizing the errors within the book.
Now, since you do help authors with literary events, and you are a consultant for people who are starting out as self-publishing authors. How important do you think it is to have a prepared media kit or at least a one sheet for the book that you're promoting?
That's really important in promoting. If you want to have press, they want at least the one sheet. If you're wanting to have book signings with larger organizations, with larger event spaces, they're going to want to have that information. It just looks more professional. Like I am a real author, not someone that just created something and put it together. I think just looking as professional as possible, and it helps to give them the insight on the book, because someone's looking to have you in their event space to speak as an author, it's highly unlikely that they're going to read through the book, but having that one sheet, that press packet to see if like that's even something of interest to their audience is really important.
I know for my side of it, I absolutely love it when people have at least a one sheet with basic information about the author and the book and cover art and at least one good headshot of the author. But if they have a full media kit, it is even better because it makes it so easy for me not only to decide if I want to have them on my show, but where to put them that it's going to get them the most attention.
Agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
So now this is the part of the show that we like to do 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but we're just going to keep going with it anyway. Are you ready?
Yes.
So question 1, since we're heading into the summer months, what is your favorite childhood memory of summer?
Going to Disneyland, driving to Disneyland every year with my family. We did that just about every year. We would go to Disneyland. Sometimes we would go to Knott's Berry Farm also. And so I don't love road trips now, long ones like that. But as a kid, like you don't really think about it. And it's fun. You're in a car, you got snacks, you're getting ready to go to Disneyland. So I would say that was, one of my fondest childhood memories.
Do you know, last year I actually got to take my husband to Disney World here in Paris.
Ooh, la la.
That was the first time he had ever been to any Disney park.
Wow. What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Ever? Wow.
we had so much
That's
fun.
amazing. How did he like it?
He loved it. And we did everything. We even got like our faces painted.
I
We
love
got
that.
we got pictures with every character. It was so much fun.
Oh, I am definitely the adult that gets her face painted if someone's doing it
Oh
out in the world.
yeah. It's like, why the heck not? It's fun.
Exactly. Oh, so fun. I love that.
So now, question 2. As an adult, what is your favorite travel destination?
One of my favorites, I would say, especially for relaxation, it's Hawaii for
Ooh.
great weather, beautiful water, beaches, relaxed, and such nice people. The natives are
Hmm.
so nice and down to earth. Yeah, it would have to be Hawaii. Like, it's so relaxing and beautiful and great food. Yes, hands down.
That's still on my bucket list.
Oh, you'll love it. It's so amazing. I went late last year and I just came back so relaxed. And that was my first time actually not going with my daughter. So just with adults. And so I came back like so relaxed, so much so that my daughter, like on the second day of being back, she was like, "Are you okay?" No, I was just like, just so zen still. And oh my gosh, I can't wait to have that feeling again.
That is the best kind of vacation when you come back like that.
Yeah, I was on that Zen kick for at least, I wish I would have documented when did that switch happen? When did I switch back?
Question 3. I know you do volunteer work. What is your favorite volunteer activity?
I love volunteering with kids.
Hmm.
I'm not actively doing that right at the moment, but I would say volunteering with kids has just been the most fun and enriching because their little personalities are just, it's so cute because it's like they're all different. And especially having a daughter and seeing her different changes. And when she was a young kid, being around her friends within the school and whatnot, just, yeah, they just make you feel young at heart.
Yeah.
They're so innocent and just say what's on their mind. They're so honest. I love it because as adults, we lose a lot of that. So I would have to say, yeah, working with the kids.
Question 4. I know you are a board member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women in San Francisco. What is the best experience you've had being a part of that organization?
I would say the camaraderie, the sisterhood. Everyone is so very supportive of you. They're supportive of you within the organization and within your role. If you need assistance or help, people are always willing to step in and assist. And even outside on a professional level, they're very supportive to your professional endeavors and want to see you succeed. So I would say in general, just a very supportive, enriching environment.
That's always nice when you can find that.
Absolutely.
Question 5. Since this episode is part of our Summer Read Suggestions magazine issue, what book would you recommend for children for the summer?
Wow, good question. And I don't know if they have a new book or not, but the Wimpy Kid series, I love those books. I'm like a big kid. Like my daughter used to read those. I've read some of her books too, but even if they don't have a new book out, I mean, they have many different books, but I love it because there's pictures in there. The read is a really easy, fun read.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that series and it's just fun. It has you smiling. It's always different kind of escapades and adventures going on within the book. So yeah, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. Pick one.
Let's see, I think for me, whenever I was little, one of the series that was really big when I was a kid was Encyclopedia Brown. Do you know that one?
I don't remember that one. No.
It was a kid detective where his friends would come in with cases that he had to solve. I've always been a fan of like cozy mystery kind of books, and I think it started with Encyclopedia Brown.
Oh, I think I do. I don't know if I read that. I think that sounds familiar. When I was growing up, the Sweet Valley High twins.
Oh, yeah.
I used to read those. Yeah.
So now, before we go, please remind everybody who you are and where they can find your books.
So my name is Takiyah, and you can find my books on my website, TakiyahSmithAuthor.com, on BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, and of course, anywhere that books are sold. If you want to support your local bookstore, you can give them the title of my book and my name, and they can definitely order it for you.
And if anybody is interested in hiring you for literary event services or as a consultant for self-publishing, they can find all that information on your website as well. There will be a link to that in the description of today's podcast on our website and in the current issue of Book Banter magazine.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I really appreciate chatting with you this morning. Well, afternoon for you.
Yeah, it's always fun trying to figure out those time differences.
I know. And I thank you for having me on today. It's been a pleasure.
So there you have it, folks. My interview with Takiyah Smith. She is such a fascinating person and so much fun to chat with. Be sure to go check out her books. If you're looking for something to entertain your children this summer, her coloring books are probably just what you need. And her adult book, Single Mom and the City, Creating Time, Money, and a Rich Life, may be just the book that you need for your summer read. Now, next week, we have college instructor and best-selling author Andrew Nyberg, and we're going to be discussing his latest release, The Never Born Thief. And if you have not heard of this book or checked it out yet, do not wait. Run to your bookstore and check it out because it's good. But you'll be able to hear about all of that from the author himself in next week's episode. And as far as Book Banter Magazine updates go, my fantastic husband, who is my in-house technical support, was able to explain to me how to actually use the programs that I need to upload Book Banter Magazine into the Share Magazine sharing platform. So hopefully next week, you will be able to find Book Banter Magazine wherever you can access magazines with Share Magazine. If you're sitting in a lobby of a hotel or a spa or your doctor's office, check the walls. There may be a poster that you can scan and read all of the magazines available in the Share Magazine program for free while you're in that space. And Book Banter Magazine will be among the selection. I think that's enough for today, folks. So you know what that means? It is time for you all to go forth and be really, really happy. There are so many fantastic summer reads.